Usually about this time, and she is there as usual. You can rely on Jaqui, as Jaqui Lane, who is leading Australian businesswoman and political commentator now, in actual fact. And she has been in a very interesting country for the last week, as probably interesting as ours, just quietly, and she joins us now. Jaqui, hi, how are you?
I'm going particularly well, Michael.
Good on you. Listen, just quickly, I see both the Australian and the Sydney Morning Herald and the whole world's leading with the fact that Donald Trump's been found guilty. How does that play in Australia?
Look, to be honest, I don't think most Australians kind of pay much attention to it at all. We just look at it all as a bit of a, I think we're all terrified that he's going to get re-elected. So I think most people would not pay much attention to it politically. I think everyone's got their fingers crossed that he doesn't get over the line this year.
Quietly. Now, but your big issue at the moment, Jack, is immigration, and this is where it affects New Zealand. 2 years ago, Jacinda Ardern, I think it was 2 years ago, went to your new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. I think she was the first foreign leader to go and see him and congratulate upon his election as the Prime Minister of Australia and the Labor Party for getting in as the government. And said, listen, we've got a problem with all these bad people being expelled from Australia, coming in and polluting us in a big way. Most of them are raised in Australia. They might have been born here, but they're raised in Australia, have committed crimes, very bad ones, everyone from murder to drug running to rape, the whole works, you know. And they have now come back and, in actual fact, rejuvenated, it has to be said, not rejuvenated. They've agitated, they've created a gang scene that's out of control in this country at the moment and have committed crimes of serious disproportion in this country too. Albanese said to him, listen, we understand what you're saying. Listen, we've probably been a bit harsh. It was the old Liberal government, after all, who did all this, Dutton and all that lot. Listen, and they sent something called, as I understand, a Ministerial Directive 99 to essentially, when determining whether to send those people home, how long they'd spent in Australia rather than are you an Australian citizen, as to govern them as to their decision as to whether or not they could come back to New Zealand. Now, take me from there.
Well, where do you want to start? So, the current issue is that, I think you might recall we talked about this, that the federal court we have all these people who are in permanent immigration detention, not New Zealanders, people from all over the world who were on Manus Island or in offshore detention, finally got here. They were stuck in permanent detention here, really. And the court last year said you can't do that. You can't put somebody in and with no hope of returning to their own country. And some of these people have been in inverted commas detention centres or hotel rooms for up to 8 or 9 years. So the High Court said you can't do that, so a whole bunch were released. The Labor government rushed through legislation, or tried to, didn't get through. Now they've come up with another thing, that they review the cases through what's called the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. That wasn't working, so they've issued Directive 99, which sounds like Get Smart to me, although not that smart, where the minister can decide what happens when something doesn't go right in the supposedly independent Administrative Appeals Tribunal. It's a cluster stuff.
So essentially the whole idea of this directive is to stop or to encourage people this tribunal to keep people in Australia who might have, say, had their entire childhood or young adulthood in that country. Is that right?
No, it's to keep immigrants who are in detention, even though under the federal court they said they couldn't, and they were all released. So it's really dealing with the people who were regarded as not being genuine refugees who have been held in permanent detention.
Okay, but it does affect people that are coming to this country, yeah?
Not quite sure.
Well, the only reason I say that, Jackie, is because the New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon this morning and the Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters both say that they regret Australia's decision to rewrite Direction 99. Mr. Luxon has said this morning... Yeah, carry on.
Okay. No, you go.
Mr. Luxon said that New Zealand will be advocating very strongly. I raised my concerns with Prime Minister Albanese yesterday morning during our phone call, he said. We understand Australia is a sovereign nation and can make its own decisions, but we have great concern about that decision because we don't think that people who have very little attachment to their country, to Australia, this country, but with strong connections to Australia should be deported here. This is something that is seriously concerning, and so I said to him, we regret this decision that Australia has taken. I raised those concerns about that, and he reassured there'd be a common sense approach. That's just come out and been reported by the Australian as of 31 minutes ago, and Winston Peters has said something very similar as well. So obviously there is a concern that that decision is going to affect us in New Zealand, Jack.
So technically it could, and I'm just looking that up now. So it gives the minister the power to review people's appeals and their visas and cancel them or have them deported. So this is really around, it's not directed at New Zealand, but it certainly potentially could be. It's really directed at those who were released from immigration detention due to the High Court ruling last year, but New Zealand no country's been scoped out, so technically it could be. So I guess maybe Winston and the others are just kind of getting their oar in first to say, I hope you're not going to apply that to New Zealanders and do a kind of backdoor way. But I think the real nature of all of this is that Labor has been performing appallingly badly on this whole immigration matter. Andrew Giles is starting to look like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, and it's been quite reactive, and it's a bit of a dog's breakfast because the Administrative Appeals Tribunal was set up to be independent, to kind of remove a ministerial intervention, if you like, and it's ended up being so Direction 99 has just basically reinstituted it. So we've now got a bureaucracy that was meant to be independent that's now not independent because the minister's now got individual oversight, which was always problematic when Peter Dutton was the Minister for Immigration.
Yes, and the other thing here, Jack, seems is that Barnaby Joyce has come out, a former Deputy Prime Minister. I'll talk about just what he said in a minute, but what's Barnaby Joyce's status now? He's an interesting character. He he was kicked out as leader of the Country Party, I think, wasn't he? Because it was the Liberal sort of National Party over there. He had some sort of personal life crisis or whatever, but hey, it's turned his life around. And then he got re-elected back in. Is he a National MP or is he a Liberal MP?
He's a National MP, and he's had a very interesting career, should one say. I mean, his personal thing is, he got videoed, collapsing on the footpath and swearing on the phone, and so that's, and really he's kind of the country bloke joke who's always been fond of courting the media and sometimes for not the best reasons.
But he seems to keep on getting re-elected, so one would assume that he has the confidence of...
Yeah, he's very popular in his electorate and is not backward in coming forward.
No. But he's just come out and had a go at, your Prime Minister, and blamed the whole Direction 99 issue and the fuss around Immigration Minister Andrew Giles and the things we've just talked about now directly upon Anthony Albanese's relationship with former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Does that run with you?
Look, I think it's a bit of a cheap shot. But I think that the whole immigration issue is a